What's up YouTube, it's your boy Zeta, and I'm back again with another big video. I haven't really made a very large scale video since the Ultimate GT Power Skill, but let's just say that this large scale video is very unexpected. For those who are unaware, I've been having some recent disputes with someone by the name of Vonyi. Now for context, I made a video debunking his power scaling because I disagreed with the idea that Cell's only solar system level and that he cannot be universal in terms of power. But it looks like he took that personally because after I made a debunk video against him, he decided to respond to me and I responded back, and pretty much Vonyi would try to go to war and debunk every single possible video he could get his hands on. So this guy decided to pull some Lex Luthor and become one of the biggest haters of my entire channel. And here's the thing, right? I only expected to make one response out of this guy, but he was genuinely pushing it by constantly calling me a low tier, putting AIs of me and having him beat me up in the AIs. The guy's genuinely a weirdo. I mean, for Christ's sakes, he thinks Naruto beats God and anime in general beats God. He also has like a H-man PFP in his past and he supports MAGA. So this guy's a weird anti-religion far-right extremist trying to tell me that I'm an unintelligent person. The more you watch this video, the more I list down all of the terrible things that he's tried to do to my career, and trust me, he is a bigger hater than my previous hater, who is a guy named SSJ Ryu, who tried the best he can to make Dragon Ball GT look as weak as possible, and that Vegito from Dragon Ball Z could solo the majority of Dragon Ball GT. But yeah, it looks like he's been surpassed. There's a hater even worse than him now. Say hello to Vonyi. Now for those who are wondering, who have already been caught up with the beef, why am I making this a compilation? The reason why I'm making this a compilation is to signify that the beef between me and Vonyi is officially over. Let me explain. In my previous video addressing Vonyi's terrible arguments, I basically proposed to him that if he doesn't debate me on Discord and makes a video responding to me again, then he's officially signifying that he is my bitch, he's afraid to go on Discord, and that he's a worse debater than me. Which, to no one's surprise, he actually followed the rules and decided to make a video responding to me, so he's officially signifying that he is my bitch and he is staying on YouTube in his little echo chamber so all of his fans can hype him up with false hope that he's genuinely intelligent. With that out of the way, here's every single debate I have had with Vonyi via response videos, and watch how I absolutely dismantle every single claim that he makes deductively, inductively, and abductively. And for my people who are currently caught up, here's the timestamp for the newest debunk video I have against Vonyi, as I absolutely destroyed his Dragon Ball GT downplay. Anyway, yeah, let's go.
I cover all the arguments used to assert that Cell is universal and beyond. I'll just explain why I believe he isn't.
So a couple of days ago, I made a video explaining why Cell is in fact universal and the arguments against it are absolutely terrible, debunking a person's video in the process. But however, it looks like a guy by the name of Vonyi decided to make a video explaining why Cell is not universal. On top of this, he also makes many additional claims that downplay Dragon Ball, which I will debunk in this video.
Even in the Toyverse continuity, Cell required charging to reach a level where he can destroy the solar system with his Kamehameha. It's explicitly mentioned in countless sources that his ki increased to a high enough level where he can destroy the solar system.
The scans that you sent within your video do not actually prove that it was necessary for Cell to actually reach solar system level via charging ki. Most of the scans simply just say that Cell charged his ki enough to destroy the solar system, not that it can't destroy anything beyond that. So let's not place some sort of false dilemmas here, man. Also, on top of that, just because it stated that the energy is enough to destroy the solar system does not mean that it was necessary to be charged in the first place. The energy doesn't need to be charged for Cell to be solar system level. It just claims that the energy is solar system level at bare minimum, which means that your argument is not only a false dilemma but a blatant non sequitur.
Now, why does this matter? It matters because of the wording. The statement suggests that Cell's ki until that point was not at a level where it can destroy a solar system and that it needed to increase to reach such a level. Meaning that Cell's energy right before he started charging up his Kamehameha was not high enough to destroy the solar system.
Even if we do suppose that the guidebook statements do actually claim that Cell needs to charge up his energy with a Kamehameha in order to be solar system level at best, this would literally contradict the entire source material that is already shown within the Dragon Ball Z anime. This is because we have feats like Frieza casually exploding planet Namek, and after the explosion of planet Namek, not only did it destroy Namek, but it destroyed an entire freaking galaxy. Unlike statements which are actually propositional, meaning they can be true or false, feats are literally blatant. Like, this is literally on screen. The galaxy gets blown up. So if Cell starts to claim that, oh, I'm only solar system level, man, Cell is literally wrong, because a person who is way weaker than him can blow up a galaxy.
The point of contention is that Cell's Kamehameha reached solar system destroying power while he was in the middle of charging, and when he reached its peak, it must have gotten stronger. And yes, I agree, it got stronger. I do, however, disagree that it got significantly stronger, as the amount of charging Cell needed for his energy to increase enough to destroy the solar system is far more than the amount of time he had remaining after that landmark. In other words, it's unlikely that Cell managed to even double the amount of energy in his Kamehameha. And furthermore, the Kamehameha is never depicted as increasing the power of the user that much. For example, against Raditz it was like a 2 to 3 times increase, and against Frieza it was even less than that.
Yeah, so your induction is not going to actually follow, because Cell actually claims later that he's going to destroy everything, as well as claim that he's going to destroy the solar system, so it's perfectly fine for Cell's Kamehameha at the very end to reach universal tier, but it doesn't actually have to reach universal tier prior. It can be solar system level, and then the further amplified version is universal. That's totally fine.
Beyond that, Broly is directly confirmed by Koyama to be unable to destroy galaxies or even multiple solar systems in one shot.
Hey man, so why are we using scans of people trying to gaslight an old man to feed their agendas? Koyama as an independent source is way too inconsistent to be verified, so I think Koyama would only be reliable if what he's saying is backed up by the source material. And in the source material, we literally see the galaxy getting obliterated instantly by Broly.
Since Broly scales above Cell,
I don't disagree that Z Broly is stronger than Cell, but wholly begging the question fallacy, you literally did not prove this premise was true.
now let's cover the arguments. Number 1, Cell's goal was to destroy the universe. Number 2, Cell said that he would destroy everything with his Kamehameha, thus he would have destroyed the universe or even the entire Dragon Ball macrocosm. Number 3, Cell scales above Frieza, who withstood a galaxy level explosion. Number 4, Cell is galaxy level because he was going to destroy the solar system, which is a galactic nebula. Number 5, Cell scales above movie 8 Broly, who destroyed the South Galaxy and can destroy the universe. Number 6, when Earth is shaken, Piku says that it's as if the whole universe is shaking. Number 1, while Cell's goal was to destroy the universe, that doesn't mean that it would have been blown up in one shot. Even Buu, being much greater than Cell, was only destroying the universe over time.
Okay, so there are plenty of issues with your argument. So the first argument relies on possibility because Cell claims that he could use instant transmission to another planet after the Earth gets destroyed. But this argument is completely flawed because it uses the phrase could, which entails that it's a possibility. If Cell is universal and he destroys the universe, then the possibility of him being able to instant transmission to another planet is false. You can't conclude a proposition as fact when the proposition itself claims that it's possible, not that it's actual. Your Buu point is also false because destroying a galaxy in one shot can still be interpreted as destroying a couple of planets within a few years. Because within those events of a few years, he destroys a galaxy in one shot, which would still mean that he destroys hundreds of planets within a few years. Also, this isn't Buu quote-unquote destroying the universe over time because Buu literally isn't even trying within this entire segment of the old ages in Dragon Ball. And we know this is the case because Goku in the Buu saga confirms that Kid Buu can poof the universe, which means that in a quick amount of time, Kid Buu can literally just blow up the universe easily.
Number 2, Cell himself states that after he blows up everything with his Kamehameha, he will use instant transmission to go to another planet, proving that this interpretation is false. The word everything is subject to context. In this scene, Cell is talking to Gohan after he's saying that he'll blow up Earth in the solar system, so it can simply refer to Earth and its people or even the entire solar system, not that he'll blow up everything in the macrocosm. Number 3, even if you want to claim that all universe Frieza is galaxy level, that alone won't prove that Cell is universal by itself, and this being a galaxy level feat is blatantly wrong, since it seems that it was simply a zoom into the explosion. This is supported by the fragments of Namek being visible.
You see how you pull this out of your ass? There's literally no evidence that the fragments shown on screen are the same fragments from planet Namek. A galaxy in of itself contains tons and tons of celestial bodies, planets, stars, etc. So for you to make the claim that it is actually Namek in question is an extreme claim that needs justification. Because planet Namek is too far from the edges of the galaxy, it would make more sense for it to just be a visual representation of an explosion. For example, when comic books or other kinds of media depict an explosion, artists usually like to add debris or flinging rocks to make the explosion look more visually appealing. It's not actually anything regarding realism or anything like physics or just anything like that. I don't know why we're trying to apply real world laws or realism to try to debunk something that isn't even real and is fictional.
Number 5, Broly did not destroy the South Galaxy. The movie takes place within the South Galaxy.
Alright, so this interpretation is completely false because yes, while the movie does take place within South Galaxy, everything outside of the planet that is in South Galaxy was completely destroyed, and the only remnants of South Galaxy that even exist is just a singular planet, which is the one where Goku, Broly, and everyone else are fighting at. This is further supported because Paragus comments how him and Broly will rule over all of the other 3 galaxies, suggesting that the South Galaxy was completely decimated, so therefore there would be nothing left ruling. If the South Galaxy truly wasn't destroyed, then there would still be something to rule over for Paragus and Broly, but there isn't. If your interpretation is actually true, it would be more expected for Paragus to actually mention the South Galaxy when talking about what he's going to rule with Broly.
Many planets and many starry skies in the South Galaxy, with both Goku and King Kai acknowledging that the South Galaxy itself is still intact. So
just because King Kai told Goku to go check out South Galaxy does not mean that South Galaxy's matter still exists. It could just be talking about the area of South Galaxy where it was prior to the destruction. A similar analogy would be if the Japanese military told someone to go check out Hiroshima and it's just Hiroshima being completely decimated. Also, the scenery with skies in the background doesn't actually prove that the galaxy was not destroyed, as it can also just be for visual appealing, because if you just made the sky look dark and black for some reason, it wouldn't actually be as visually appealing. Like, I don't know what's up with you trying to create like a realism within fiction, like saying, oh dude, there's this in the background, distance this, distance that, man.
the statement on how Broly destroyed the South Galaxy can be instead interpreted as him killing the life in that region, as opposed to him having destroyed all celestial bodies within it.
Okay, so if I'm destroying a house, does that mean I'm destroying the entire Earth?
And by the way, the galaxy at the start of the movie is not the entire South Galaxy, it was confirmed to be simply a singular galaxy within it.
Okay, so this is blatantly wrong because the Chozenshu confirms that Broly did in fact destroy South Galaxy, specifically using a specific type of Super Saiyan transformation, and it's also later confirmed that he did in fact destroy every single southern galaxy.
And while Broly did plan to destroy the universe, that was only going to be accomplished over time and slowly.
But the universe is infinite, so to destroy an infinite universe, you would need to have infinite speed.
Now, would this make Broly and Cell galaxy busters? The answer is no, since Broly is unable to destroy multiple solar systems in one shot, as confirmed by Kuyama.
That is literally textbook definition of death of the author. Are you dumb on purpose?
Hence, we can argue that the galaxy at the start of the movie that was destroyed was simply destroyed over time and the footage was likely sped up for us. This is also backed up by how fast the galaxy was spinning. It can be argued and interpreted as this being a time-lapse as opposed to real time.
Again, you are literally being logically disingenuous because this is just presupposing that real-life laws must be included within fiction when the galaxy could just be spinning really fast to make things look visually appealing, because if we had a static galaxy being destroyed, it would not be fun to watch because a static galaxy is really boring and has no appeal. And again, with the old man gaslighting, you cannot take this guy seriously.
This would also explain why we don't see any ki blasts and any huge explosions. I would also like to note that it's possible that the galaxy was not destroyed in the sense that we always assume it was. While yes, it's possible that Broly blew up all the celestial bodies within the galaxy, it's also equally possible that this was just a metaphorical representation for the life being destroyed within the South Galaxy.
Yeah, you never actually justified the semantics for visual process referring to metaphorical imagery and not just the visual process of the galaxy getting fucking wiped.
Make far more sense with the context and what Koriyama has said about Broly's power.
Old man gaslighting. Say it with me now. Old man gaslighting.
Furthermore, if Broly was actually blowing up celestial bodies, it would make no sense for Goku to follow that key and to try to teleport on those destroyed worlds, because he would literally end up in outer space and suffocate to death.
Instant transmission exists. To make my concluding statement, here's all of the scans that I can find about Cell being universal, and it's very, very consistent. Any anti-feat that disproves Cell being universal is far less consistent than the consistency of Cell being universal. And as previously shown in the video, Broly also has galaxy to universal level feats, so very obvious. Anyway, that's all I got for this video. See ya. So it looks like this degenerate Vonyi decided to respond to the video that I made, and he presented the absolutely most horrible, strawmanning, most non-sequitur arguments I think I've ever heard this year. But what's worse is that over power scaling, he's now trying to expose me over trying to debunk his videos, because he's now trying to bring up this whole new agenda just because I wanted to make a debunk video on him. Wham, you decided to send your dick rider friends to go make out-of-context screenshots of me in order to make me look bad so I lose my career. Yeah, very funny, Vonyi. You're not slick at all. So now, with this video, let's address everything that Vonyi has said and debunk it to absolute hell.
Yes, you actually had the decency and balls to tag me instead of trying to make it behind my back.
I didn't really make it behind your back if it's literally on youtube.com. You're subscribed to me, buddy. You literally can't miss it. It's right there. How did I make it behind your back? Also, just because I use your videos as research to useful things that I use to argue does not inherently mean that I have to agree with everything that you do. Like, to be fair, Vonyi, I respected your videos to some degree, but you trying to use this to openly make a sob story and expose me is some of the saddest shit I ever heard. This is just basic shit. Me saying that I slammed you or that I was boasting about slamming you, I mean, to be fair, dude, like, it's really not that serious. We can just debate on Discord.
But this is the part that really made me decide making this video. Dripsauce, new Vonky wallite, he believes Broly is on the galaxy level. Dripsauce, I just debunked the Vonky's ultimate cell video, I don't think you should be unfollowing me. So basically, Dripsauce unfollowed him because they disagree on universality. And Zeta is trying to pander to Dripsauce.
Okay, so first of all, you're not really caught up with the beef between me and Dripsauce. We're good now, actually. There's a lot of misconceptions that were covered up between me and him, so I don't want you jumping to conclusions without you even knowing the full story. But also, I wasn't pandering to Dripsauce. I hope you know that I've been friends with Dripsauce for more than 3 years, like reaching 4. So me tagging my friend is totally fine and doesn't mean I'm like praising him or like seeking validation from Dripsauce. In fact, I never have seeked validation for Dripsauce. Almost every single Dragon Ball inverse take I make is against what Dripsauce argues for.
This picture, the picture of somebody's face, posts it non-stop and mocks them because they believe that Super is stronger than GT. So this guy is a piece of trash, basically.
It's crazy how you need to get people to make out-of-context pictures in order to make me look bad so my career becomes terrible and I lose my reputation, when this just didn't work at all. First of all, right, this guy is actually someone who has made multiple false allegations on me, and I've been preaching for him to get off Discord because 1, he's mentally ill, 2, he's made multiple false allegations. I think he should be banned from Dripsauce's server, right? All this guy really has done is just hate me for believing that GT is stronger than Super, so he will try everything he can to make multiple false allegations on me. He claimed that I doxed him, he claimed other stuff, he's just an absolute mess, and I literally don't think he should be on this app at all.
The Kamehameha's chi continued to grow until it was powerful enough to destroy not just Earth but the solar system. Now, these statements imply that his ki needed to increase to reach that level, that it wasn't at a level where it can destroy the solar system prior.
This is actually false. Just because I can power up a sort of something like a punch doesn't necessarily mean that I can't output that max power, which is the punch that it was initially. For example, I can charge up a kick that could probably like hurt a dog, and then another kick that would be able to make a hole in the wall. That doesn't mean I don't have the output or capacity to output said power, you know what I'm saying? But overall, this point was completely trivial because the whole argument is that Cell is not just solar system level, he is universal. He's going to destroy the universe. So if he's going to destroy the universe, he must have energy that is enough to destroy the solar system, because the solar system is in the universe, and if you're destroying the universe, you're destroying the solar system.
Enough to destroy the solar system, not that you can't destroy anything beyond that. So let's not play some sort of false dilemmas here.
Listen, Zeta, I know that you're very bad on comprehension, but these cans weren't meant to say that just because he raised his key enough to destroy the solar system, he caps there. These cans were meant to say he needed to rise to reach such a level.
None of what you proved genuinely provided evidence that Cell needed to charge up his key to reach solar system level. This is also just not even like shown anywhere.
Also, on top of that, just because it stated that the energy is enough to destroy the solar system does not mean that it was necessary to be charged in the first place. The energy doesn't.
I never said that just because it had enough energy to destroy the solar system, it needed to rise to reach such a level. I said that it's directly stated that his key rised and continued to grow until it was powerful enough to destroy the solar system, thus his key wasn't strong enough.
That's a non sequitur because that doesn't actually prove that I don't have the output or capacity to actually, output that said kind of attack potency. You genuinely did not attack anything, you just repeated yourself.
Now, why you haven't proven that. You haven't even made an argument.
Yeah, so this is just going to be another tracking issue because the whole point is that Cell is universal, yet you try to use solar system level as a contradiction to him being universal, even though universal analytically would have to be inclusive of solar system level, galaxy level, and other lower tiers as well, as they are engulfed or encompassed within the universe. They are inside of the universe. So if you are universal, you would also have galaxy level and solar system feats by proxy because they are encompassed and composed inside of the universe.
Feats like Frieza casually exploding Planet Namek, and after the explosion of Planet Namek, not only did it destroy Namek, but
This isn't a feat of him destroying the gods. I argue that this is just a zoom in. This is why we can see Namek's fragments, which were invisible.
Vonyi, are you genuinely a robot repeating yourself? You would never prove that these are in fact Namek's fragments, and just because there are rocks does not result in this being a zoom in. This is actually a non sequitur. There are rocks in a galactic explosion, therefore it's a zoom in. That's a non sequitur.
That's the case. By the way, it's quite funny that he cut out this part, which
the point was not at a level where it can destroy the solar system, and that it needed to increase to reach such a level. Meaning,
So I actually refuted this argument in the beginning of this specific video, so that's why this whole point is completely irrelevant, because it's basically just another claim repetition. But also, even if we suppose that this does actually entail necessity, it's just going to be completely false because of what is synthetically shown in the narrative, which completely contradicts the supplementary guidebook, which is less credible than the actual source material.
and against Frieza, you'll see that. Yeah, so your induction is not going to actually follow because Cell actually claims later that he's going to destroy everything as well.
the statement that he'll destroy everything comes before he said that he'll destroy Earth and the solar system, and before he says that he's built up enough chi to destroy the solar system. So everything in this context is not in reference to the universe like you interpret it without any reasoning and any evidence. It's simply in reference to Earth and the solar system.
This is another repetitive argument and also another non sequitur. So yes, Cell does in fact state that he's going to destroy everything, and then later says that he's going to destroy the solar system. For one, it doesn't add context that everything is in context to only the solar system. This is blatantly a non sequitur. There are just two separate claims that are completely disconnected from one another. It doesn't actually add context if we suppose that this is what Cell's actually talking about. And second of all, if I destroy the universe, then I'm still going to destroy the solar system inclusively. So no shit, Cell is going to destroy the solar system because he's going to destroy the universe. Everything within the universe.
Everything is subject to context, Zeta. I know that you're a world tier and you don't understand this, but the word everything doesn't automatically entail the entire cosmos. It can refer to, for example, the entire world, the entire solar system. It's subject to context, Zeta. And the sooner you understand that, the sooner you stop being a world tier.
I already sent the context in the previous video that I used against you, but I'll just put my screenshots back again. Here's the Cell games being stated multiple times to determine the fate of the universe. For example, if Goku wins, then the universe is saved, but if Goku loses, then, well, Cell destroys the universe. The universe was quite literally at stake, which is what the text implies. So if it's at stake, then it's going to be destroyed incredibly quickly, and that this is an event that is happening within the present, not the far future of destroying the universe over time.
So I think Koyama would only be reliable if what he's saying is backed up by the source material. And in the source material, we literally see the galaxy getting obliterated instantly by Broly.
No, we actually don't see it getting obliterated instantly by Broly. We see a time lapse.
Yeah, so the time-lapse argument is just not going to work, and it's just going to be astrophysically false, because if we apply, the idea that it's a time-lapse because the galaxy was just spinning really fast, it would be completely a terrible argument, because it would take millions of years for a galaxy to even appear moving, right? So we have your time-lapse argument, be true, then Goku would be dead! Because the time-lapse argument is contradictory, it would be more reasonable to say that it's just in reference to the visual continuity and doesn't actually correspond to anything astrophysical or temporal in nature. Again, the galaxy spinning is just in reference to a visual continuity within the narrative and doesn't actually correspond to any astrophysical or spatio-temporal axioms that would make it different from linear time, that would result in the idea that it's just an overtime feat. It literally is not supported anywhere.
Okay, so there are plenty of issues with your argument. So the first argument relies on possibility because Cell claims that he could use instant transmission to another planet after the Earth gets destroyed. But this argument is completely flawed because it uses the phrase could, which entails that it's a possibility. If Cell is universal and he destroys the universe, then the possibility of him being able to instant transmission to another planet is false. You can't.
Listen, Zeta, I know that you're a world tier, but again, you have absolutely no basis. My argument was him destroying everything is not in reference to the entire universe. Now, you saying saying, oh, but it's a possibility. It's a possibility doesn't debunk anything. The fact that it's a possibility that he'll go to another planet after he destroys everything shows that he wasn't going to destroy the entire universe and that everything is simply in reference to something else.
Okay, so the first flaw with this argument is that there are planets within the other world and Cell could just use instant transmission to go to the planets in the other world and it wouldn't contradict that the universe would be destroyed. The second flaw with your argument is that it violates most of the internal consistency that we already have within the anime, where Cell literally told Goku that the Cell games would determine the fate of the universe and multiple other external sources agree with Cell. So when we compare the idea of Cell capping at solar system level and Cell being universal, it's more propositionally justified for Cell to be universal because not only do external sources agree with him, but there is in fact internal consistency within the narrative of Cell being universal. Whereas you only have this one statement that could maybe a little bit imply that Cell caps at solar system level.
It's going to destroy the entire universe and all of the planets. There would be no possibility, Zeta, that he'll go to another planet.
Hey man, what happens when you die? Oh right, you go to Otherworld. What's in Otherworld? Planets. Can Cell go to these planets? Yes. Okay, we can conclude. Actually, speaking of Otherworld and Heaven, here's you claiming that biblical God would lose to Naruto. The fact that you tried to expose me with out-of-context screenshots is the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen you do, when the fact that you have more dirt on you than I ever could of you blatantly dissing religions and trying to power scale God, and then claiming he loses to Naruto.
One shot can still be interpreted as destroying a couple of planets within a few years, because with
Listen, Zeta, I know that you're slow, but it would make no sense for Shin to say he destroyed hundreds of planets in a couple of years.
You genuinely didn't attack anything. Blowing up a galaxy would still logically be mutually inclusive with destroying a couple of planets within a few years, because inside of those few years, he destroyed a galaxy, which contains hundreds of planets.
If Buu actually one-shot an entire galaxy, which would include millions of planets, the implication is very clear that this was an overtime feat, and even the scene that I showed from the image shows for planets getting blown up one after another. So
It's funny that you bring up that point, because in that exact same scene, the galaxy gets blown up in the exact same narrative time frame as the planets one by one. So the galaxy is literally being destroyed in an equal amount of time as the planets, which means that Buu is galaxy level. Nice. GG's, bro.
yes, it's overtime. That's the implication. And you have no proof of any sort that this was destroyed in one shot, by the way.
Asian Dragon Ball. And notice the case because Goku in the Buu saga confirms that Kid Buu can poof the universe, which means that in a quick amount of time, Kid Buu can literally just blow the universe easily.
Now, I already saw these points, so I prepared the scans. Now, Zed, I understand that your research is limited to watching YouTube videos and parroting what they say, but this is not the case. The official scam, the universe will be doomed, the entire universe will be doomed. Nothing about the poof.
Yeah, so here's just blatant proof that Vonyi is wrong, because the kanji in Goku's statement includes the kanji for ba, which means to go out with a bang or a boom, which implies that Kid Buu is gonna blow up the universe, which is not something that is over time. That's an explosion. And for anyone who's gonna be like, oh, an explosion can be slow, that violates the internal and inductive consistency of Dragon Ball, because when they talk about something blowing up, it literally means to be incredibly quickly. Even Vonyi agrees to the idea that the solar system is going to blow up, as in Cell is solar system level, because he's going to blow up a universe, and blowing up is very quick. So for anyone who's going to argue for a slow explosion, that is the dumbest thing I've genuinely ever heard, because even your own master Vonyi agrees to it. But anyways, the explosions in Dragon Ball are literally known to be in reference to quick explosions. Blow up the Earth. Blow up the solar system. This is just inductive consistency. We can just argue with induction that this would most likely be another quick explosion.
The universe freezes out level, that alone won't prove the universe by itself, and this being completely wrong, since it seems that you could simply zoom into the explosion, this is ordered by fragments of not being visible. You see how you pull this out of your ass? There's literally no evidence that the fragments shown on screen are the same fragments from planet Namek. A galaxy in and of itself contains...
Let's assume that this isn't planet Namek's fragments. Let's assume that this is another planet's fragments. That planet was still not visible prior, which would still imply that this is a zoom into the explosion.
Another non sequitur. You cannot prove that this is even a planet's fragments at all. It could be a meteor's fragments, etc., etc. But just because we see rocks, again, does not equate to it being a zoom, and that is a blatant non sequitur. And just because we don't see the source on where these rocks come from, and then yet we see the rocks in a later frame, does not also equate to being a zoom in. So that's another non sequitur on top of the one you already committed.
It doesn't matter whether it's Namek's fragments or another planet's fragments. The overall point is that these fragments, whatever they're from, that thing was not visible prior, which implies that this has to be a zoom into the explosion.
Okay, so now you're making a necessary claim that just because we don't see the source of where these rocks come from, and then we see the rocks like a frame later, it now must mean that this is a zoom in. So I already addressed like for the third time that this is a non sequitur, but also it's perfectly conceivable within a fictional scenario that the rocks can simply just be like independently, like not associated near their original origins at all. They can literally just exist outside the galaxy, etc., etc.
Now, this is this area, and this is when it zooms in. We see several very large stars in here, which suddenly appear and weren't visible prior. And keep in mind, take a look at this shot. Once again, very small stars, which makes sense. But as it zooms in, suddenly very large stars that weren't visible prior. So yes, this quite literally means that it was a zoom-in.
Vonyi, the non sequitur demon, this does not actually prove that this is a zoom in. I don't know if you realize what an explosion is. Obviously, if the galaxy is going to be exploding, there needs to be some sort of change in the stars in question, whether like it being qualitative or quantitative. They are being affected by an explosion. So no shit, things are going to be looking differently around space. It doesn't have to correlate to it being a zoom in. Also, it's extremely questionable if these things that you're referring to are actually stars, as it could literally just be the explosion's quality coming forth like more and more. So it's like, it's very questionable if these things are actually stars. Like, it could literally just be the quality of the explosion. Even the Toei website blatantly confirms what I'm saying, with them directly confirming that the galaxy was in fact engulfed and lit up by Frieza. So this is very obvious. The whole galaxy lit up. I wonder why. I wonder how it was lit up. It's almost like a guy named Frieza destroyed planet Namek, and the explosion of the entire planet was not just planetary, but extended across an entire galaxy. The explosion is the light, the energy in question that is being expanded.
Namek in question is an extreme claim that needs justification. Because planet Namek is too far from the edges of the galaxy, it would make more sense for it to just be a visual representation of an explosion. For example, when comic
Or maybe this is actually simply a zoom-in, like I said.
books or other kinds of media depict an explosion, artists usually like to add debris or fleeting rocks to make the explosion look more visually appealing. It's not actually anything regarding realism or
Listen, Zeta, you're making the argument that this is just a visual and that it isn't meant to be realistic. The same way I'm making the argument that this is simply a zoom-in. So you haven't done anything to prove that I'm wrong. You haven't even done anything to prove that this isn't a zoom-in.
Yeah, so I don't actually have to prove that it isn't a zoom in when your argument isn't even valid at all, which would result in another non sequitur. Your whole argument is basically, oh, we don't see source in frame 1, and in frame 2 we see rocks. Therefore, it must be zoom in. If the whole galaxy is blown up, which is literally confirmed by the Toei website themselves, so therefore the galaxy being blown up is legitimately canon, then the rocks in question would either just be for visual effect, or the rocks were just, they were just kind of just there. Like, they were just so fast, like the explosion was so grand that even the rocks managed to go outside of the galaxy in a quick amount of time.
To literally see multiple stars in the background.
Yeah, so the issue with your argument is that it's just going to be a visual continuity and doesn't actually correspond to any astrophysical axioms within the verse, and we can deduce this being the case because multiple guides and multiple sources confirm that South Galaxy is in fact destroyed. So if South Galaxy is in fact destroyed, this is backed up by the narrative and guides, then that would have to mean that the stars in the background in question would just have to be for visual continuity and not corresponding to any astrophysical axioms, which is a logical possibility.
Explained that him destroying the South Galaxy in this movie is simply in reference to him destroying the life, because we see that the celestial bodies weren't fully destroyed, and we see him destroying civilizations.
Okay, so this is just going to completely violate ontological parsimony, because suppose we set two hypotheses where they both explain the exact same amount of data, yet one of the hypotheses contains an additional unsupported assumption that is not necessary for the conclusion to follow. The additional assumption being that it's just referring to life in the galaxy, which is completely unsupported and goes outside the relevant sample space, which would increase the potential falsifiers within your argument. Therefore, it would be more plausible and reasonable for my interpretation to be the case, as it just assumes, alright, only what is said in the text, right? And it only goes with analytics for what a galaxy is. A galaxy is literally a large collection of celestial bodies, right? And if I destroy a large collection of celestial bodies, then therefore I am galaxy level. My interpretation is more parsimonious because it only sticks to what is said in the source material and the guides without going outside of anything, making additional assumptions that are not said or supported anywhere. In fact, the whole basis for your assumption that it's just referring to life comes from another thing that is also being put into question. It's also being put into question if the stars are just there astrophysically or if they're just used for visual continuity. And for my last point, the two reasons for why it can't be life in the galaxy is because we literally see that celestial bodies are being affected in the galaxy. Alright, if it was just life in the galaxy, then the galaxy would still be there. And by the way, there are creatures like the aliens and Paragus who were alive before and after the South Galaxy event, which would have to mean it cannot be referring to life in the South Galaxy.
So, Paragus saying that he will rule over the other galaxies is because the life in South Galaxy was already pretty much fully destroyed, fully exterminated. How can you rule over something if there are no people for you to rule?
But there was life before and after, so your point is trivial.
Just because King Kai told Goku to go check out South Galaxy does not mean that South Galaxy's matter still exists.
Zeta, did you ignore the fact that I also show a scan where Goku goes to South Galaxy and to see celestial bodies, other planets? By the way, you claim that only one planet existed. That's not true, because Goku teleports to multiple planets in a row that broadly decimated.
I don't necessarily disagree with this idea, but the problem is that there can still be remnants of something that is destroyed. It doesn't contradict that it's destroyed. There can still be planets and other little specks here and there, but that doesn't contradict that the galaxy got destroyed. There can still be remnants of something that is destroyed in nature.
Okay, so if I'm destroying a house, does that mean I'm destroying the entire Earth?
A house contains only a very small population of the people, but if you kill all of humanity, all life form on Earth, then sure, that can be interpreted as you destroying the planet.
Hi, my name is Vonyi. Yes, I think Naruto is stronger than God. Yes, I'm a non sequitur demon. Yes, I'm terrible at parsimony. And yes, I am in fact a low tier.
But the universe is infinite, so to destroy an infinite universe, you would need to have infinite speed.
I don't care if Broly has infinite speed.
Nice concession?
This does not mean infinite.
You just proved to me that the definition of endless was possible to be referring to infinity. Also, I don't know why you showed a picture of the Universe 7 ball when this is very obviously a higher dimensional perspective, because the neutral zone would have to be a higher dimension if all the universes are infinite, because if you know how set theory works, like higher infinities view lower infinities as finite structures.
innumerable also isn't infinite. And in my video, in fact, I already talked about how the galaxy only contains 200 billion stars, so we already know that innumerable here doesn't mean infinite.
This point is completely trivial and doesn't matter at all, because even if you want to say that the Milky Way contains 200 million galaxies, that's totally fine because there are infinite galaxies within the Dragon Ball universe. An infinite number of galaxies. And if you look at the kanji for Mugen, it literally dissects on why this is in fact referring to mathematical infinity.
That is literally textbook definition of death of the author. Are you dumb on purpose?
That to the author, prove it. Prove that Kuyama is wrong. You can.
Up an entire galaxy!
Was Majin Buu universal? Let's find out.
So it looks like this Naruto dick eater Vonyi has yet again made another Dragon Ball Z downplay video, trying to downplay their power as much as possible, because of course Dragon Ball fans can't have everything, and Naruto beats biblical god and solos everyone. You guys asked and I delivered, so here's yet again another Vonyi debunk to his terrible Dragon Ball Z power scaling, as not only does this video benefit you because you wanted the video in the first place, but also it makes me money. Yeah, Vonyi made me $10 in 1 week just by debunking his low tier ass. I might as well just call you Farm Key because of how much money you're making me unironically, which is actually very funny, and thank you so much for being a genuine idiot because it's making me the big bucks.
Starting with the manga, Buu has a few statements that he would destroy the universe, but the issue is that there is zero evidence that he would have done it quickly or in one shot, and in fact both Buu's backstory and the Buu saga would suggest otherwise, with the context of any destruction that we see or hear Buu cause always being over time.
Okay, so the first argument you're presenting is just blatantly ignoring the actual translation and context, because the kanji in this actual translation actually uses the word ba, which is supposed to indicate like a bang or a boom, which we know in Dragon Ball is instant. Explosions are instant. He was going to blow up the universe. Also, the way Buu was destroying things during the old ages doesn't necessarily contradict him being universal, because Buu's intent isn't to destroy the universe during the old ages, and if you can prove that intention, sure, go ahead, but you did not throughout this video, so it can just easily be dismissed via Hitchin's razor.
Furthermore, most, if not all, the statements are only in reference to Buu destroying the life in the universe.
I don't necessarily disagree with this, but for you to make the dilemma that it must be only the life in the universe isn't necessarily anything that has been proven within the narrative. It can be both the celestial structure of the universe and the life in the universe. That's not a contradiction at all. And given what I already explained earlier in this video, it would actually be both the life in the universe and the celestial structure of the universe.
Of course, there is the infamous Buu statement that every single wall tier uses, but the issue is that this is a mistranslation by Hun.
Is this supposed to be you? Bro, you look like a knockoff Dean Withers, bro. Stop talking to me. Like, holy chopped, bro. You have no right to be talking, bro. Bro, you look like one of those Europe, all the praise my little dark age looking ass kid. Shut your dumb ass up. What are you talking about, bro? You're chopped.
The old Japanese and official translation do not contain anything synonymous with the word poof, nor anything indicating a time frame. So
the kanji is literally an indicator that the universe will blow up. Do you know what blowing up is supposed to entail in Dragon Ball?
moving on to the anime, Buu has the same statements which given the context can be attributed to him destroying the universe over time. The anime supports this notion even more than the manga, considering the fact that we have many different flashbacks of Buu destroying the universe over time.
Again, prove Buu was intending to destroy the universe, because if you cannot prove that Buu was intending to destroy the universe at this time, then you can just dismiss this argument via Hitchin's razor, because all you're saying is purely speculative and gets you nowhere.
And we also see him destroy the universe over time when he starts rampaging in the Buu saga.
You might genuinely be the dumbest person I think I've ever had to debunk on YouTube, because literally your own skins debunk you, as Buu is intending to find and fight Goku and Vegeta, not destroy the universe right now. So if his intention is completely distinct from another intention, that being destroying the universe, then your whole argument is trivial. He's trying to fight Goku and Vegeta.
Buu has his notable feat of destroying a galaxy, which many people believe is a blatant galaxy busting feat, but that is completely baseless. There is no proof that he destroyed it in one shot.
The basis of my argument is that it's just going to be synthetically true via how we see planets getting destroyed instantly and then a galaxy getting destroyed instantly. There's no actual contradiction with this synthetic data, so it's just going to be more parsimonious that the galaxy being destroyed is actually a one-shot via what we see synthetically within the narrative, rather than you baselessly assuming that it's a slow process of the galaxy being destroyed with nothing to actually back up this claim. When we compare my interpretation versus your interpretation, my interpretation will be more parsimonious because it only sticks to the assumptions of what is synthetically shown within the narrative, rather than you making an unjustified assumption that it's a slow process of the galaxy being destroyed, which is completely unjustified, by the way. Completely unjustified with no actual proof to back up this claim. So the fact that your argument includes completely unjustifiable assumptions and completely unnecessary ones as a whole, it would be more parsimonious to appeal to my interpretation because it has less potential falsifiers in comparison to yours.
But in fact, the context suggests otherwise, which in describing overtime destruction and to seeing planets getting blown up one after another prior. So given the contextual evidence, we can determine that this is most likely an overtime destruction feat.
Okay, so this is just blatantly a non sequitur. Just because the planets were being destroyed one after another doesn't necessarily mean that the galaxy level feat is false, as we quite literally see the galaxy getting instantly destroyed after the planets get instantly destroyed, which is a literal synthetical truth. So your whole argument falls apart when you notice that the synthetical truth is there and you cannot refute it at all without making baseless assumptions. Also, just because Supreme Kai says that many planets were destroyed in a few years is not a contradiction to the galaxy level feat, because if you destroy a galaxy within a few years, you're also still destroying hundreds of planets within a few years, because hundreds or even thousands of planets would be contained within a singular galaxy.
Argument number one, Argument number two, the Kaioshin realm does not exclusively refer to the entire dimension itself. It's like saying the world can only refer to destroying the universe. In reality, world can also mean planet.
Raise your hand if you use this argument. Oh right, no one uses this argument. Yeah, we can dismiss this.
Original Japanese, the characters use the term Kaioshin Kai. This translates to the world of the Kaioshin. Naturally, the planet too can be said to be the world of the Kaioshin since it's the world they live in. There is nothing in the entire episode to suggest that Goku and Buu are affecting the entire dimension. In fact, Elder Kai specifically notes that the planet is very tough and won't break easily, tapping his foot on the ground while saying so.
Nobody's disagreeing that the Kaioshin planet isn't being affected. That's very obvious, but that doesn't mean there isn't anything outside of the Kaioshin planet that is being affected, and there's very obvious priors from the anime that would denote this being true. One instance of this being the case is the fact that Goku and Kid Buu are able to completely change the environment of the Kaioshin realm, despite the fact that there are multiple suns that surround the Kaioshin world, so it would be absolutely impossible for the Kaioshin realm to be darkened. The only way this could be possible is if there's some form of reality warping or high levels of ki that is making this even be possible. So the fact that this is even occurring means that there's likely something external being affected rather than just the Kaioshin planet, making it more parsimonious that when they say the Kaioshin realm, it's not just referring to the Kaioshin planet, but rather the entire space in question.
So in this episode, the writers quite literally point the attention to the durability of the planet in that episode, with nothing else ever being mentioned to be affected or to be subject to any sort of destruction.
Again, the fact that the Kaioshin realm is surrounded by multiple suns, yet it can somehow still be darkened by Goku and Kid Buu, means that they are committing some sort of external act that is external to the Kaioshin realm entirely. So when they say that the Kaioshin realm is being destroyed, it's most likely talking about the space in question, because there are acts already being committed that must be external to the planet, because if it was internal to the planet, then most of these actions wouldn't even be actualized.
Whenever we see any sort of destruction, we only ever see the planet being damaged, with everything else being fine. Argument number 3. While Buuhan was obviously going to destroy the universe simply via chain reaction, people argue that the impressive part is not the destruction it would cause, but rather tearing up the dimensional walls, since they separate universes.
Now, before I get into this debunk, I just want to clarify, just to be clear, really just to be clear, that this is my argument for why Buuhan is multiversal. So essentially, premise 1, low multiversal means to affect 2 or more universal space-time continuums. This is very analytical. Premise 2, there is a metaphysical boundary between 2 universes, aka the wall between dimensions in Dragon Ball. Premise 3, this boundary is multiversal because it functions on a multiversal scale by keeping multiple space-times from merging. Premise 4, Buuhan destroyed this boundary. And conclusion 1, destroying something that operates on a multiversal scale is a multiversal level action. And my second conclusion is that Buuhan is low multiversal. Now, this is a logically valid argument, and the scans are actually present within the narrative. So let's see how Vonyi responds to this argument and see if he's good at debunking it. Spoiler alert, he is not.
While at first glance this seems like a smart argument, once you actually apply physics and logic to it, it crumbles very easily.
Physics? Bro, I don't think you can really apply physics to an unquantifiable dimensional metaphysical wall, buddy. Anyways, continue.
This argument assumes that the dimensions are always pressed and bump against the barriers, and B, the argument assumes that Buuhan must have exerted more force than those dimensions contain for him to breach the barriers. A, there is absolutely no evidence of any sort that the dimensions ever bump into the barriers. The argument fundamentally misunderstands how the dimensional barriers in Dragon Ball Z work.
Vonyi, I think you might be a little bit slow, because whether or not the dimensions are bumping into each other is completely irrelevant. The fact that Buuhan affected a metaphysical wall, and once this metaphysical wall was broken, dimensions started to merge in with one another, proves that the metaphysical wall was necessary to keep them intact and was actually separating them on a multiversal scale. This form of reasoning is called asynthetical truth in logic, which is basically truth by observation. Not everything needs a direct statement that you're constantly begging for. We see that after the wall gets destroyed, everything starts to merge, meaning that this wall was in fact keeping everything together.
It assumes the barriers work like a wall located between the universes, with the universes constantly bumping into it. That's however not true whatsoever. The barrier simply refers to the fabric of the universe, the space-time continuum of the universe. Any point of space is a so-called barrier.
Okay, so Vonyi, this is a very easy example of you not tracking the narrative of Dragon Ball Z, because it's quite literally stated to be a wall between dimensions. They're linguistically making it distinct that the wall is distinct from the dimensions. It's a wall between dimensions. It's not talking about a wall of dimensions. It's not talking about a wall or framework of the universe. It's a wall between dimensions. This is very clear. How did you miss this?
That's why dimensional barriers can be opened at any point in space of the universe. They can be opened at the atmosphere of Earth, they can be opened at the ground level, the clouds, etc.
No one's disagreeing that's what Majin Buu can do. That's been very obvious since the release of the manga. But this doesn't necessarily mean that the Buuhan interpretation is false. Buuhan, yes, is screaming through space-time, but not only is he ripping through the fabric of the macrocosm, he's also destroying the wall between dimensions, which opens up even more space-time continuums to destroy the entire universe.
It's also why the ability is described as warping space and making a rip in the universe, because once you make a rip in the space-time continuum, you can exit the space-time continuum and enter another place. So no, there is no wall between the dimensions that the dimensions constantly bump into and physically separates them. That's not how it works, and there is absolutely no evidence that this is how it works.
It's both. It's not just one interpretation, it's both of them. Both of them exist. There is a wall that separates multiple space-time continuums, and Buu's ability can also rip through space-time, but can also go to an even higher degree than just that.
And B, this argument does not account for pressure. The smaller the area that we apply a force on, the greater the damage is. This is why sharp objects can pierce the flesh so easily without even having to apply any real force behind it. Well, much more massive objects can do that. Buuhan is shown opening the barriers and ripping the fabric of space-time by shooting out laser thin ki blasts, essentially applying his force over a very small area of space and breaking it apart bit by bit. But dimensions are large, very large, and
Okay, so your argument presupposes that this is the only area being affected by Buuhan when the entire universe is being affected by Buuhan, as it quite literally states that these are distortions in space, and that this space is spread across the living world and will wipe out the universe. In fact, Vegito is extremely worried that the universe will be destroyed by Buuhan, so the fact that he is worried and completely rushes over to Buuhan to co-stop him means that the universe most likely is narratively hyped up that it's going to be destroyed incredibly quickly, and that these distortions are occurring across the entire universe, not just in this one small area.
Space is also extremely empty. In fact, only approximately a 60th of space has any sort of matter in it, and all of that matter is spread out in the form of celestial bodies separated by millions of light years. All of those celestial bodies are also moving in different dimensions. Effectively, their energy is being spread out in multiple different places, in multiple different directions, and isn't concentrated. So naturally, the energy and mass of a dimension is not concentrated on a single point, and is instead spread out all over the place. Just because Buuhan can open up space does not mean that he has more energy than the dimension.
You mean a space that causes distortions, aka ripping, and this ripping is across the entire universe. You're telling me that ripping across the entire universe doesn't have more energy than the universe. What are we talking about?
Not to mention that the gravity of the universe will naturally start pulling those dimensions, considering how gravity works. Objects with mass attracts other objects with mass, meaning that they will effectively start gaining more and more speed the closer they are, and start moving with each other with more force and speed. So these are two completely different scenarios there.
Okay, so please prove this is in reference to gravity. If you can prove that the reason these dimensions are being pulled together is because of the universe's gravity, I'd really like you to prove that. Oh wait, you can't? There's nothing in the anime or any priors from the anime that indicate this being the case? Okay, we can conclude. But on a serious note, the best reason for why the dimensions are even pulling into one another is just appealing to what is said in the show. We know that there's a dimensional wall. This dimensional wall is responsible for separating every dimension that Buuhan was going to merge. However, once this dimensional wall is destroyed, all of the dimensions are now going to merge into one. Using deductive reasoning, we can infer that the reason why these dimensional walls are pulling into one another isn't because of gravity, but rather the absence of a dimensional wall. This would make sense if you understand how set theory works. So suppose I have two infinities. How can there be two infinities if infinity is already infinity, basically endless? How can there be two endlesses? It's simple. There is a higher infinity that exists outside of the two infinities that would be necessary to separate two infinities, because without that higher infinity, having two infinities would be impossible, because infinity already fills up a three-dimensional manifold. In fact, this is how our own multiverse theory works, as it's believed that our multiverse functions on a fifth-dimensional space-time continuum, as it encompasses all worlds and all possibilities. So if you destroy something that is fifth-dimensional, or at least destroy the fifth-dimensional manifold, then essentially the ability to separate multiple infinities would be impossible. So what's going to happen if you destroy the fifth dimension? Exactly. What's going to happen to all the fourth-dimensional things inside of it? Exactly. What if they are all rolled into one? Because the fifth-dimensional manifold is necessary to separate all of these fourth-dimensional space-time. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that Buuhan was destroying a higher space that was necessary to separate everything. So if he's destroying a higher space to separate everything, then logically everything is going to become one. And Dragon Ball actually backs up this interpretation, because the universe in Dragon Ball is infinite, which opens up the possibilities for set theory being true in Dragon Ball. So when these dimensions are merging with the universe, it's not basically gravity, but rather the spatio-temporal warp or merge because of the lack of a fifth dimensional or higher manifold. And if you want to argue anything outerversal, it would just kind of just be an example of like a metaphysical change, you know, who cares, drip sauce. So in conclusion, the moral of the story is that stop downplaying Dragon Ball, and Majin Buu solos your favorite verse with literally no difficulty. He will just turn your entire verse into candy. So yeah, anyway, that's all I got for this video. See ya. Alright, let's do this one last time. My name is Zeta Solos 1. I was bitten by a Super Saiyan 4, and for the last almost a year, I've been the one, the only, ultimate GT YouTuber. I'm pretty sure you know the rest. I saved the GT Com, beat SSJ Ryu, saved the GT Com again, and again. And I did this.
I'll be honest, I think you may need to take over as like the hope of the Dragon Ball combo. Like Drip Sauce is not fit for it.
Chat, does that belong to me? But after everything, I still love being me. I mean, who wouldn't? So no matter how many hits I take, I will always find a way to come back, because the only thing standing between this community and oblivion is me. There's only one Zeta Solos 1, and you're looking at it. So now it's time to put belt to ass on Vonyi one last time. And if Vonyi, just to be clear, if you make another response or another video against me, this is an official confirmation that you're my bitch. You understand me? What I want you to do is I want you to add my Discord, Zeta Solos 1, to debate me, and we can finally settle this there. If you make a response or a video against me, you are officially signing the confirmation that you're my bitch, and that you're a low tier, and that you suck. But just for clarification, I'm not ducking or bitching either. I'm inviting you to debate me on Discord, and I will be live streaming the debate. so that it will be recorded and that everything will be public information, so the live stream does actually broadcast everything. So if you want to discuss with me, you're going to discuss with me on Discord, so I live stream it. If you respond via videos, you're my bitch. Just to clarify, that's the condition.
Ash argument we are both told and shown that he has both space and time when he has literally bended the space of the world to void to make portals, and he skipped and slowed down the time of the world to void. Goku and that Yardrat literally use instant transmission, which works by bending space, and even Beerus' own statement states that time exists, which just makes it an oxymoron. Since the Spanish sticker guide is literally based on that statement, it would make it no more reliable.
Okay, so two things. One, the reason why these quote-unquote spatio-temporal abilities function is just so the plot or the narrative can persist. Because we have characters like Hit, whose entire character is using temporal-based abilities or abilities regarding cause and effect. So if he's in a timeless realm, or a realm where his abilities regarding spatio-temporality can't work, then Hit would become a completely trivial character, which obviously the narrative doesn't want. So they can allow exceptions like Hit, etc., etc. So anything of that sort of nature can just be dismissed as an inconsistency, and obviously we can allow at least some form of inconsistency within fiction. There's even temporal inconsistencies, like with timelines within a story, but we still accept some of those narratives as canon to each other, even if there are inconsistencies. Also, too, what we need to understand is the basic fundamentals of abilities in Dragon Ball, as abilities in Dragon Ball are quite literally functioned off of ki. And ki is stated to be spiritual energy and energy that can transcend physical limits. So that would mean that ki can function on an abstract level, meaning this isn't a contradiction at all. Because the world of void is abstract and ki can reach an abstract level, the time stuff and portal stuff can all just be depicted, but in a way that would match a non-physical or metaphysical system, not necessarily something that abides by spatio-temporal axioms or some other kind of system, which is logically permissible within fiction. Your argument presupposes that just because things are akin to spatio-temporal manipulation means it must be spatio-temporal manipulation, which is just completely fallacious. It would actually just be a non sequitur or a composition fallacy. Pick your poison, buddy. I don't really care. You think anime beats God. You're genuinely pathetic. You also never provided a single semantical justification for why the phrase similar for the instant transmission would have to be in reference to bending space or something that corresponds to our own space-time theories for time traveling. So this can just be dismissed by Hitchin's Razor because you never actually proved anything. When they say similar, it could just be in context of the fact that instant transmission can travel from point A to point B basically instantly, which is kind of similar to time travel because you're traveling to the past or you're traveling to the future, but Goku already gets to his destination easily just by teleporting instantly, which is kind of in a way similar to time traveling. Your final argument for this segment also presupposes the phrase emptiness must entail something like spatial, right? But this argument is actually completely stupid and would actually just follow under a nominal fallacy, because if you're trying to describe an universal realm, obviously it's going to be impossible to describe like a place without accidentally implying any like spatial values, but the intent remains clear that this place is not spatial at all, since the scan that you sent quite literally admits that this place has no time, no space, and is eternal, right? If you understand what eternity means, it means to be before time. You're not of time. You're not of any spatio-temporal constraint. You're genuinely an idiot. When they talk about emptiness or they talk about something being filled, it's not in context to anything like physical, as these words can still be applied to something that is metaphysical or abstract in some sort of way and can function by that system in like some sort of state of affairs. So your argument is genuinely terrible.
If the world to void towards the concept of space and time, it would have to be a metaphysical realm that exists outside of the physical, and for it to be universal, it must transcend all physical things and exist above all space and time and be independent of all of them.
Which is quite literally what is shown in the scan. Why are you like just blatantly contradicting yourself? You're yelling oxymoron, bro. Oxymoron, dude. This is a contradiction, bro. It says filled with emptiness, bro. Emptiness, bro. Filling, that's like a physical term, bro. You can't apply any like physical word to something non-physical, bro. Like, dude, you can't do that. It must only be physical.
The world to void fits that description just shows that you cannot power scale, because it's literally stated to exist within a timeline and within a time rift. Distortions in space and time affect the world to void, and the world to void exists within parallel quests, which are timelines created by time fragments. And people reach it by moving through space-time. So it's physically contained within a spatial-temporal dimension, it's affected by spatial-temporal distortions, it's created by time, and people reach it by moving through space-time. This does not fit the metaphysical realm transcending the physical.
This is easily just more evidence that you don't actually understand metaphysics at all. You see, just because it's labeled as a timeline doesn't actually mean that it has to function only at a spatio-temporal level, as it could function on an a-casual level, because that's actually a logical possibility within fiction. So if I establish something that exists outerversal within a timeline, and multiple timelines can have multiple outerversal realms, then deductively it would just prove that a timeline isn't necessarily limited to a temporal level. So you're just genuinely an idiot. In case if you're not aware what narrative progression is the narrative like abstract framework where all events take place. So essentially it's the flow of events within the plot or the story, which doesn't actually have to be limited to anything that is spatio-temporal, which makes sense when you consider the fact that fiction is basically derived of false events, and contradictions can exist in fiction as long as the contradictions do not contradict the narrative itself. Fiction is not even composed of any metaphysical or logical modality, so yes, this would actually line up.
I fight Grand Priest is a place that is suitable enough to allow fighters to fight with their heart's content. This would imply that this place is more durable than the entire universe in Macrocosm, where Goku could not fight to his heart's content.
It's never stated to be more durable than the universe, it's just stated that since it's empty and there is nothing for them to destroy, they won't have to worry about anything.
This is a non sequitur and doesn't actually attack anything I'm saying. I'm saying that because Goku can affect the spatio-temporal framework of Universe 7, and that he doesn't have to worry about destroying the world of void, then the world of void is like emptiness or metaphysical space that engulfs the world of void would be more durable than the universe. Like Vonyi, I don't know why you're being the king of false dilemmas, because both interpretations would still apply to the narrative.
It's not different from how the Z fighters move to isolated places when they fight.
Because he was struggling to control his energy and control his powers to prevent Beerus from destroying the entire universe in Macrocosm.
You're using the one time Goku had no control over his power, ignoring how Goku has no issue fighting for his life ever since without destroying as much as...
Okay, so what you don't understand is that in the Battle of Gods Arc, Goku could not control his destructive capacity, but in the Goku Black Arc, he can control his destructive capacity. That's what you're completely ignoring. ignoring. There are different fundamentals of ki control, whether attack potency or destructive capacity, which is why not everyone in Dragon Ball is casually destroying planets with a single ki blast, because there are certain levels of ki control and different fundamentals where they can destroy like whatever they want to a certain extent, how they please.
The next argument is that because Hit can use time powers, then the world would have time. Because the world would not have time, then Hit would not be able to use time powers. But this argument is really bad because at the beginning of the Tournament of Power, the Grand Princess sees the fact that the Tournament of Power has its own rules by preventing users from.
I don't know how this makes you rhetorical, considering that you believe anime beats God and you already ducked Drip Sauce, so your argument of you bringing up how, oh dude, Zeta lost to Drip Sauce in a debate, yeah, that doesn't make you rhetorical at all. You would still get absolutely bitched by me or Drip Sauce. Pick your poison, buddy. But anyways, right, even if we suppose that I lost to Drip Sauce, even though he believes multiple layers of God Ki exist, he also believes that, oh, no one can beat Super Saiyan God in GT because Goku said that it's a level of power he can't reach on his own, even though it's clearly in context to a ritual, not that it's immeasurably beyond everyone.
Argument contains so many assumptions and headcanons that it might as well be an entire fanfiction. Beta is
Not even headcanon, considering the fact that I already established that ki can function on an abstract level, so something working on an abstract realm would just function within like a non-physical or metaphysical system. So yeah, it's not even headcanon. I blatantly proved it earlier. You're the one who's making headcanons, buddy.
Two Childs trying to play pretend. His premise is that the space, time, and gravity in the world are some sort of imaginary artificial space, time, and gravity that are different, but still somehow work the exact same way. This
Vonyi, are you genuinely high? My argument is that they don't function the same, and that they function under a non-physical, abstract, or metaphysical system, not anything that functions on a physical system. Are you slow?
point he's literally making things up that don't even exist. Even definitionally, his statement makes no sense since if a character creates a space, that doesn't change the fact that it's a space and it behaves like a space. The fact is that we are taught that he skips and slows down time, not that he skips and slows time as some non-time thing that just happens to work the exact same way. It's stated that Raza bends space, not that he bends some non-space thing that just happens to work the exact same way. Occam's razor is a very powerful tool, especially when people like Beta make such pathetic arguments.
Vonyi, are you genuinely stupid? Occam's razor functions similarly or basically on the same system of parsimony, but your whole parsimony-based argument is not going to work considering the fact that it's already established multiple times in Dragon Ball that ki functions on an abstract level. So things of the matter can function on a metaphysical or abstract system, and you arguing for a physical system is still going to be of equal parsimony, and since it's not contradictory within the world of void, you're just arguing from basically pointlessness, and it's just going to be equal parsimony. You're not doing anything.
He confirms that Grand Princess did to simply modify the gravity of that space, not that he created some non-gravity non-space thing that worked the same. So he did.
It's almost like this is a repetition of your entire argument. My argument is that characters can perform actions that function on a metaphysical system, so my same kind of argument is still going to apply here.
To use space and gravity manipulation to affect the already existing gravity of the world towards the space.
Argument is that because the tournament of power is measured in time through 100 tax AK 40 minutes must mean that the world would have time. But this argument is really bad because the fact that the world doesn't even have time and space would support the idea that they would have to do something like this so that people can understand the tournament in earthly time terms to understand how much time has passed on Earth or how much time has passed on other planets these other universes can come from. Because no time passes in the world of void. Sending over the concept of space and time would give anyone that has time the ability to move at a place like that or by speed.
Except if time didn't
Yo, you wish to actually see that. Notice how this never actually happened, bro. Notice how you've been ducking me on Discord. Add up, discord.com, Zeta Solos 1. See if you can beat me for over an hour. Spoiler alert, you can't do it. Add me. Let's go to a server. Let's go to a neutral server so I can beat on you, so I can put belt to ass on your low tier ass. Come add me, bum. I own you. You're my bitch. Add me up.
in the world of void and the characters move at immeasurable or irrelevant speed, the tournament would have ended before any time passed on Earth.
Your argument assumes that time exists in the world of void. You're genuinely an idiot. This is literally just begging the question. I'm saying that this timer would have to be functioning under some sort of subjective time. Just because a clock moves in a timeless world doesn't mean that time exists in it. As like I mentioned before, there can be an abstract progression of change or narrative progression that allows these things to change or alter in state of affairs without necessarily entailing time. So this argument presupposes that it functions under like actual time, presupposes time exists. Yeah, you're genuinely an idiot.
It would be better to go with this as the case rather than having to try to find a contradiction because this has no contradiction and perfectly explains everything more logically.
We don't need to look for any contradictions because the statement is self-contradictory. False statements exist, and just presuming that the first half is an absolute truth just because it's stated shows that you can scale or reason on any respectable level.
Yeah, this argument still doesn't work. Your semantics for eternity are not proved, and the fact that it's stated to lack time and space would just mean that eternity in this context is something that is before time, unbounded by time, in context to actual eternity, not eternity as in lasting forever. So your scan actually proves my semantics, you genuine bum.
Yo, what's up, YouTube? It's your boy Zeta, and a little while ago I made a video explaining why Dragon Ball Super is universal.
As if I didn't put belt to ass on your dog shit video.
Based on the Dragon Ball GT story, it's stated to exist outside of space and time. But what form of time does the Suguroku space system depend from? It could be outside of the universe space time. It could be outside of conventional space time, like 4D, 5D space.
It's literally stated that Goku was warped into a different dimension of space, and that the Suguroku space has been referred to as an alternate dimension reached by warping the fabric of space-time, much like Gotenks and Super Buddha in the Buu saga.
Okay, so for one, none of what you showed in the scans actually prove that it's talking about just a simple dimension-busting feat, as we literally see in the source material of Goku's Kamehameha engulfing the space, which is a completely distinct event from what Gotenks and Super Buu do. Also, him escaping the space doesn't actually contradict that he completely destroyed the entirety of the Suguroku space, as it's a similar analogy to, let's say, I'm destroying a building from the inside out, which is how I'm able to escape it. Yeah, I destroyed the entire building, that's why I'm not in the building anymore. Also, dimension in this context is more likely just a colloquial term to mean like a realm. It doesn't actually have to correspond to any spatio-temporal axiom, so let's not assume your semantics are true here, buddy. I already gave the abductive justification in my video that the Suguroku space is actually outerversal, so if it's outerversal, then dimension in this context doesn't actually have to correspond to anything that is physical or spatio-temporal.
Between unspecified spacetimes and dimensions does not prevent it from being inside another spacetime. space-time. Nowhere is it stated that it doesn't have those things or that it doesn't exist inside the space-time.
Okay, so this point you made genuinely just proves that you're absolutely shit at parsimony and you don't know how to argue what's more ontologically parsimonious. If we take your interpretation that the space could be contained inside of another space is a completely unjustified assumption that's your burden to prove. If your interpretation includes unnecessary assumptions that have no actual backing or justification, then they can just be dismissed via Hitchens' razor and also increase the potential amount of falsifiers, making my interpretation more valid. Actually, if we use parsimony, the most valid bare minimum interpretation for the Suguroku space would at least have to be 5D. This is because if we compare it to your interpretation assumes that it's just in between two unspecified universal spacetimes and is also contained within a much bigger space that contains all three. In fact, the 5D interpretation only has to assume that the Suguroku space is just the area or zone that is between two universal spacetimes, which is expected for something that runs in a fifth dimensional function. In fact, this is even further backed up because when you actually read the text, which you didn't because you assume that time and space is in reference to universal spacetimes, which you didn't prove in the video, by the way. But if you actually read the text for what it actually says it's an area between time and space, not two universal spacetimes, which you didn't prove. In fact, if you pay attention to the phrase between time and space are not actual physical locations. They are frameworks used to define physical locations. So if you exist outside of a framework, especially when it comes to space and time at bare minimum, you would be 5D. A similar example in terminology would be the phrase between life and death. Life and death are not physical objects, nor are they anything correlated to physicality. They are concepts to describe the state in which one is in currently, either dead or alive. If you are between life and death, you are quite literally not limited to life and death at all. The fact that I proved at face value that it's more abductively justified that the Suguroku space would have to be in reference to a transcendence completely shits on your argument, and any other additional assumption would be less parsimonious and just makes you shoot yourself in the foot. Do better, son. And I already proved in this video why it would also abductively be outerversal, so you're genuinely terrible. Oh no, but I'm not done beating on your low tier ass. Let me make a Bayesian account because you tried using that shitty ass translation argument. Yeah, so the thing is that Japanese people aren't stupid. They can actually use context, and it would actually be more expected for your interpretation to be true if it was actually there. Your interpretation would be more true if they quite literally said spaces and times. But no, the fact that they literally translated the text to refer to space and time being between space and time is just going to raise the plausibility that it's actually talking about space and time and not spaces and times. You have no evidence to make an abductive justification that it's more likely a mistranslation or a mistranslation at all. You're terrible. But honestly, it's not surprising that you'd make this kind of argument considering that you're a Donald Trump fanboy, so of course you'd make some racist assumption about Japanese translators and how they're horrible at their job.
Data himself admits that it simply can refer to being outside of the universes, and in fact a metaphysical realm with no concept of space and time cannot exist between dimensions.
Yo, no way. It's crazy how this low tier actually conceded that his own semantics were false. So yeah, if it's a metaphysical realm without the concepts of space and time, it would actually make more sense for between in this context to not refer to physical location, but rather lacking the dependency or just not being subject of. So yeah, it's not subject to those dimensions. It's not even of those dimensions, you stupid low tier. And also, yeah, I did say that it can be in reference to between universes, like physically, but the issue is that you completely ignored that I already gave a higher abductive justification for why this interpretation wouldn't be the case. So yeah, you're genuinely trash. You've been trash. You're not a good debater. You're ass.
Except once again it's literally referred to as being inside a different dimension of space.
Yeah, so I don't think you're aware of what a non-contradictory interpretation is. Yeah, so the issue with your argumentation is that if it's already established that the Suguroku space is not an area of time and space, abductively speaking, and it's also stated to be a different dimension of space, then dimension in this context likely isn't talking about something that is composed of physicality, which would make sense if you understand basic freaking logic, you stupid low tier. And like I said before, dimension in of itself is ambiguous. Dimension could just be in context to another realm or another place, not something that is composed of anything physical. Your whole argument for dimension keeps presupposing that your semantics are true without actually proving your semantics are true. My video already justified my own semantics, now go justify yours. You're not going to push that onto somebody without actually proving it. So let me give you a similar example so I can educate you. So suppose I have something that is stated to be a crocodile and that said thing is also stated to be an animal. What you're going to do is you're going to twist the semantics whenever you want to and say that animal could be in context to a completely separate animal, even though the justification is already given that this animal is a reptile and this animal is a crocodile. That's exactly what you're doing.
This alone destroys your entire argument. Data thinks that just because Suguroku space is mentioned in the same sentence as the subspace, that makes it nearly identical to it and it must walk the concept of space and time.
This is not my argument. My argument is that since the Suguroku space is similar to that of the subspace using objective priors from both the anime and the Chozenshu, it would be more parsimonious to say that the Suguroku space lacks the concepts of space and time.
He ignores how the hyperbolic time chamber is also mentioned in the same sentence as the Suguroku space, a dimension with time, space, gravity, temperature, physical matter, and can be reached by opening holes in the space-time continuum of the universe. It's much more likely that this simply refers that they exist inside the subspace.
No way, bro. You fell for my trap 2 times. Bro, what I literally mentioned there was a trap. Bro, no way I precog you. So your first argument that it's talking about them being existing inside of the subspace? Bro, that's not what the text says. The official Chozenshu translation in Spanish directly confirms that it's in context talking about similar broad examples. It's not talking about confirmed to be within the subspace. subspace. You genuinely got caught in a trap. Also, my argument was that they are similar in nature, not purely identical in nature. I'm not arguing that the hyperbolic time chamber is nearly identical to the subspace, but they have similar factors that both the hyperbolic time chamber and the Suguroku space share. And I showed objective priors from the anime and the Chosenshu that the Suguroku space has a shared trait of lacking the concepts of time and space using abductive reasoning. You are genuinely slow.
exists in between those two infinite
This here is why Beta is such an F tier and gets his ass kicked every time he debates.
This is why Beta is such a low tier. He's an F tier and gets clapped in every debate, even though I will not add his Discord, and he's very terrible, and I'm going to stay in my echo chamber to have my fan base like cheer me up, even though I'm such an ass like debater, and I lost to destruction, and I think God loses to Naruto, and I'm an embarrassment, nobody loves me.
There is a difference between a metaphysical realm with no concept of space and time and a higher dimension that simply surrounds the two universes. A higher dimension is still bound by space and time, and it still has a physical location. A metaphysical realm that exists outside of the concept of space and time cannot be located between two universes, since universes are located inside bigger spaces. If Suguroku space is located between two universes, then that naturally means it's located inside the space that contains the two universes.
It's really funny how Vonyi likes to keep repeating these anti-parsimony arguments because he keeps acting like a parrot repeating himself, thinking he's actually rhetorical when he's by far one of the least rhetorical people I think I've ever spoken to or have ever heard on YouTube. I also don't know why you're bringing up the interdimensional argument, even though that argument is still extremely garbage, because being between dimensions doesn't necessarily have to be just limited to physical location and could just be in reference to not being limited to the dimensions or not being subject to the dimensions at all. So this is still a reasonable interpretation. I already justified my semantics. You didn't. You keep assuming your semantics are true. Keep it up, low tier.
And no higher dimensions don't exist between universes, they contain and surround them entirely.
Okay, so this is a very easy argument to refute. So if I have two 4D universes, the space that is between them is the space that's containing them. That's literally how the fifth dimension works in our own set theory. What are you talking about?
The argument is that GT Goku doesn't scale to the Suguroku space because the Suguroku space dimension was already being broken down, so all Goku was doing was just speeding up the process of the busting out of it. The game was breaking down, not the Suguroku space. If the game breaks down, then Goku's still able to wander in between dimensions because the Suguroku space is quite literally the space that's between dimensions. So the fact that Goku is still able to wander in between dimensions quite literally destroys this argument, and the semantics are genuinely terrible.
We have multiple official sources saying that Suguroku space itself was unraveling upon itself and was collapsing, not just the board game.
Oh my god, you're using a supplementary statement from the Dragon Ball website to try to debunk something that is blatant within the source material. Yeah, so here's the problem. The problem is that Suguroku space is the area between dimensions. So if the dimension is being destroyed, then Goku won't be able to be within the area between dimensions. However, it's stated that Goku still will be able to be in the area between dimensions. So logically, that means that the destruction is in context to the game and not talking about the actual Suguroku space. And even if we were to suppose that the website is talking about the dimension, it would just lead to an absurdity. So the fact that the reductio ad absurdum just landed on you because you're a stupid low tier is genuinely embarrassing. Oh, and trust me, you wouldn't even be able to get to this level of proof because you still have to justify your semantics that Suguroku space has to be talking about the full-on dimension and not just the game, which is still your burden, by the way. Oh, and trust me, it's a big burden because my semantics are heavily justified, yours are not.
And just because Goku was going to wander between dimensions does not mean that Suguroku space did not collapse upon itself.
Do we have any evidence to suggest that the Suguroku space was going to collapse on itself, and if this is ontological, like this is referring to the very space itself and not the game? Again, these are semantics that you're not proving, by the way.
There is literally no logical connection between your argument and the conclusion you're making. You don't even know how to formulate an argument.
Formulate an argument. Okay, let's list an example of an argument that you unironically gave against me. Dude, Frieza's explosion is not galaxy level because we see rocks during the explosion of the galaxy. So therefore it has to be a zoom in and it's just zooming in on the galaxy. Therefore it's not galaxy level. Zeta, there are actually still some remnants of the South Galaxy that exist within the South Galaxy, which actually proves that Broly did not destroy all of South Galaxy or perform a galaxy level feat, even though the criteria for galaxy level is to actually destroy a majority of a galaxy, which I completely ignored for the sake of my own argument because I'm garbage.
Seems that his only good GT scaling is the one that he takes from me.
Why do you keep taking statements out of context to support your own dishonest agenda? I only did research on your videos because I liked your ability to make at least some coherent arguments for Dragon Ball GT inverse scaling. But no, you decided to think that I'm making a general statement and trying to use that to make sure your audience is misinformed about me so I look like a bad person, even though you're one of the worst content creators of Dragon Ball scaling because you believe Naruto beats God, you think anime in general beats God, and what's crazy at some point is that you unironically had the H-Man as your PFP. And you support MAGA, so yeah, you're a far-right extremist, which probably explains your lack of intelligence. And I don't know why you keep putting broccoli on my low taper as if that means anything, considering that you probably use this as an insult because you get bullied by these type of people in school every day, which probably explains why you keep targeting and projecting your own feelings onto other people, calling them low tiers, when you yourself are actually a low tier. It's crazy how you actually had some decent potential to make good videos, but instead you wanted to downplay the ever-living shit out of Dragon Ball by using inaccurate physics and trying to correlate it to actual astrophysical axioms. You got completely destroyed by my boy Destruction, and that embarrassment is still within you to this day. You ducked me multiple times after I requested if we could debate on Discord, despite you claiming that you're a better debater than me. If you're really so good, then add the damn Discord. Like I said before, if you make another video against me instead of adding on Discord, you're officially signing the contract that you are my bitch, and you're gonna stay in your YouTube echo chamber because you realize that you're not rhetorical and that you're stupid as hell and you're ass. And look and behold, you actually did that. You actually decided to sign the contract that you're a worse debater than me by making another video trying to debunk me. Wow, Vonyi. Very, very cool. You officially just confirmed to the whole world, YouTube.com, that you are Zeta's bitch. This beef is over. Every time you will make a debunk video, all I have to do is just pull up that video clip of me saying that if you made a video on me, you're signing the contract that you're my bitch. So you're gonna remember throughout your entire YouTube history that you decided to make that choice and you decided to sign the contract that you are Zeta's bitch instead of debating me on Discord. You're a clown. I'm better than you.